Hi, this is Liam from the Depot, and I'm going to show you how we've been organizing our emergency food basket deliveries over the last couple days. It starts with an embedded Google form on our website, and these responses go directly to a Google Drive spreadsheet, which is pretty nice. It allows the staff to also manually enter any information and change things, and if people call in or send emails, we can add them in that way as well. The information you're seeing here is just randomly generated. These aren't real people. So I've got 10 invented people here, first name, last name, and then a bunch of contact information as well as some notes. So we've been using this online software called Routific that so far has been working really well. I'm going to go to the dashboard here and I'm going to start a new project by clicking the button in the top right. So this is going to be for March 27th, so I'll just give it a name like 0327. You can also do multiple projects in one day. A project is basically just a collection of delivery destinations, but we'll look at that as we go. The first step I'm going to do here is click on Upload a list of stops. One of the great things about this is we can upload a spreadsheet that will automatically turn into a whole bunch of Google Maps locations and create a route for us, so that's pretty nice. So upload a list of stops. We get a link here for a sample spreadsheet that we can use to format our data. So if I click that, this will just download it to my computer. And if I open that spreadsheet, I can see the format of the data that they need in order to create the routes. So they also have a bunch of sample data here, which I'm just going to delete. So we need a name, an address, and then there's a whole bunch of other information that we can work with, but it won't be quite so complicated as it looks. If I go back to our spreadsheet here, one of the first things we see is that I have last name and first name in two separate columns, and they just have one name column. But this is actually pretty easy to solve. If I create a new column here, and just call it, say, name, there's an excellent function in Google Sheets, and it's also available in Excel as well. If I just type equals and then start typing concat, I can see this formula concatenate. And what this does is it basically puts little bits of text together. So I can select the first name first, and then a comma, and then I'll add a space between them, between quotation marks like that. Another comma, and then grab the last name, close the brackets, and press enter. And it just sort of puts the two names together. And if I click on this one and then click here and drag down like that, I get all my names. So that's pretty nice. So I can copy these right away into my spreadsheet if I want. Just make sure that if you're working from a live spreadsheet like on Google Drive or something, make sure that nobody's working on it at the same time and making changes, or else, issues. So the next thing to look at is the address. The address field is going to be parsed by the Google Maps parsing algorithm, which is very good. So there's going to be a lot of flexibility here, but it's also just in one column, whereas in our spreadsheet we've got address and postal code and apartment number in 3 different columns. So the key thing here is going to be to get these two together, and again we're going to use that concatenate function. And I'm going to leave out, for now, I'm going to leave out the apartment number, because I just want to make sure Google Maps is going to direct us specifically to a street address first. So I'll just call this new column address. And let's do this. Let's call it concatenate again. And I'm going to start with the street address. And then I'm going to put a comma. And this time I'm actually going to put a space and then Montreal, Quebec. I'll just throw that in there just so that there's no confusion. And then another comma, and then I'll grab the postal code. Close the bracket and press enter, and we've got our full address here. So this is pretty nice. And again, because they're using the really good Google Maps parsing algorithm, there's a lot of flexibility in exactly how these addresses are formatted. They don't have to be completely perfect, but obviously the better, the closer they are to the more accurate values, the better. So I can copy these over now as well into the address field. From and to, these are timing values, which you can play with if you'd like. Duration I'm going to ignore for now as well. Load we're going to talk about a little bit later, but for now I'm just going to say that each of these stops has a load of 1. And I'll explain what that means in a bit. I'm going to grab the phone numbers. You can tell that these are all in different formats as well, and that's not a problem. The software, Routific software, is going to handle that for us. Email address doesn't seem necessary for our drivers for now. Types, you can categorize your destinations if you'd like, but I haven't played with that myself, and same thing with priority. So the next thing is we have 2 more notes columns, and we have 3 columns that we haven't brought over yet. We've got apartment number, the number of people in a household, and some notes. So I'm going to take these I'm going to put them into these last two notes columns. And how you do that will depend on what seems to work. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a new column to the right. And I'll just call it notes 1. And this is going to be apartment number plus the number of people in a household. So again, I'm going to use concatenate. I'm going to start with quotation mark APT space. I'm going to put in the apartment number, comma, and then I'm going to do, let's just do a couple dashes like that. And then we'll put in the number of people. And I'll just put PPL for people. Close that quotation mark. And there we go. So I'm going to drag this down again. Now there's a couple places that don't have apartment numbers, so however you want to deal with that is fine, but for now I'm just going to sort of manually fix it. So this is 4 people and looks good. Okay, so I'm going to copy this into my first notes field on the sample spreadsheet. And I'm going to copy our actual notes into notes 2. And that's all I need to do for now. Obviously, if you have instructions for the delivery driver, possibly including food restrictions or something like that, we can put those in here. Okay, so this is looking good to go, so I'm going to save it. And I'm going to go back into the project we've been working on. And I'm just going to click here to select the file from my computer. And here's the one I've been working on here. So I'm going to open it, and if all goes well, yeah, it looks like we've got 10 stops. Looks perfect. So next we want to split these stops up for our different drivers and then optimize the route. So to do that, I'm going to click on drivers up here. And I'm going to add a driver by clicking here. And again, there's other options for that as well. But I'm just going to do the simple version here. I'll put in 2 drivers at once. And we're going to start from the depot, the programming space. So this is a nice little Google autocomplete here. So I can just start putting in summer-led. Yeah, and there we go, 6450 summer-led. And save drivers here. And this will create both of them. We can edit these ones by clicking on the pencil icon here. You can put in a name if you'd like, if you know who's going to be your driver for the day. One important step is to take this address and put it in again for end address. And what that'll do is it'll force any routes that get created for this driver, it'll force those into a round trip. So it'll send them back to this location. You can change the availability of your drivers here. What this will do is it'll change the timing of the routes that get created. So if you know what time your drivers are going to be leaving at, it might be nice to at least put in that leaving time. And then when you create your routes, as we see in a second, we'll get a sense of when each delivery destination will receive its emergency food basket. And that might be nice for planning purposes or to be able to contact the participants. We also want to put in a phone number here, and that will allow us to send out these routes to our drivers and contact them while they're moving and see their progress and so on. So that'll be pretty nice. The capacity field is a number that relates directly to the load column in the spreadsheet here. So if you want to limit the number of stops that any given driver makes, what you can do is set load equal to 1 for every destination. And then back here, if we set a capacity, that'll limit the number of stops it can do. So if I put in 4 as my capacity, with the load being 1, that driver will only make 4 stops, and the route will try and arrange around that. The other option is on your spreadsheet here in your data, you can take something like the number of people in each household and turn that into a size of your load in some kind of standardized units like bags or boxes. And that way, when you go back here, you can set the capacity of one of your cars if that's going to be an issue. You can also, again, this is types, which corresponds to the types column here. So that's for categorizing stops. And there's some other options down here that I haven't played with yet. So I'm going to save this driver here, and I'm going to make sure to go into the second one and also add this end destination. I didn't put in a phone number here, but obviously you'd want to do that. And there's capacity as well. So now that we have our drivers, we want to click this button right here, Optimize Route. So I'm going to click that. So here's our route. It looks pretty good. It looks a little odd because these made-up destinations that I've created are all downtown, and the depot is here. As you can see, driver number 1 has been limited to 4 stops because I put in their capacity of 4. And right over here, you can see a little marker for that they are at their capacity. They're at 100% of their capacity. And driver number 2 has been given 6 stops. Once you've done this optimization, You can do things like manually reorder these by clicking and dragging if you want to. You can also reverse the direction of this route by clicking on this button over here. And if you want, you can also take some of these stops. So this isn't a great example, but if there were one of these stops that looked like it was on the wrong route and really wanted to just force it over into the other one, you could just click it and hold down the mouse button and drag it over to the other driver, and that would give it to the other driver to deliver to. If you clicked re-optimize now, you would lose that specific change. So once you start making changes, you won't be able to optimize from there. Once you've got your route optimized and everything's set the way you'd like it to be, you can click this button here, Dispatch to Drivers. And as it says here, if we publish this route, it's going to notify one of our drivers, and it won't notify the other because we haven't put in a phone number, which is highlighted right here. So I've got this fake phone number for driver number 1, and I could add a phone number here if I want to. So this is how you would create routes for multiple drivers out of a bunch of destinations for a given day. But you can also make multiple projects on one day if you want to, say, group your destinations into batches. That might be useful if you wanted to let people know a more clear idea of when they can expect their deliveries ahead of time. And to do that, it's really easy. You can just create multiple projects for the same day and follow all these same steps. So next up, we're going to see what it looks like when you actually receive one of these texts after you've published your routes and sent them out to your drivers, and we'll see just how much it can help the process. So our first driver, Becca, here has received her notification about her route. So Becca, what would you do next?
Okay, so I'm the driver and I have my runner with me in the passenger seat when we have our truck packed full of our bags. And so I just need to figure out where to begin, where my first address is. So to do that, I'm going to go click on this text message so that it opens the routing app.
Yeah, this actually opens in the browser. It doesn't force you to download their app. I know they do have a standalone app too, but I haven't tried it yet.
Okay, so here I am. I'm driver 1. This is where I'm starting from. And I'm just going to go ahead and click the start button. Okay, so this is my first address. This is the person's name here and their address. I can also click here on more info, which has some extra information about this address, which will come in handy later. So right now I just need to figure out how to navigate to this address. So you can go ahead and just tap directions and it'll open the directions in a new tab of your browser, Google Maps directions. But I have the Google Maps app installed, so I'm just going to go ahead and long press it and say open with Maps app.
Pretty handy.
Yeah, so I don't currently have my location on, but normally I would. And it would show me how to get to my first address. So, usually you just press start and then it'll go ahead and navigate you with voice directions and everything. And once you arrived, it'll tell you you've arrived, and you'll just go ahead and flip back to your route application to go ahead and tell it that you've arrived.
And as she's doing this, whoever's looking at the web app is actually going to see live updates about where she's at, and looks pretty cool.
So we're going to do 2 examples here. This first one that I'm going to do is imagining that this is a single family home or an apartment that has its own door. So it's a dedicated door, street-facing door. So in this case, I would, as the driver, as we arrive, I would just go ahead and sit tight while the runner got out of the car, grabbed the bags, and brought them to the doorstep of this house. And the runner would go ahead and just leave those bags right on the doorstep and ring the doorbell or knock on the door and then come back to the vehicle to close up the vehicle and get going. In the meantime, if everything looked good, I could go ahead and confirm completion of the delivery and move on to my next delivery here and go ahead and just queue up the directions already.
Yeah, so that next one just came up automatically.
Yeah, so I could go ahead and queue up my directions so that I'm ready to go when my runner gets back in the car. So we're all ready to go. And the runner would, of course, sanitize their hands after touching the doorbell immediately. So here we've moved on to our second address. We navigate there. Once we arrive, we flip back to our handy app. We mark that we've arrived. And in this case, we're going to imagine that this is an apartment building. So What's going to happen here is that my runner is going to again go ahead and grab the bags out of the car, and meanwhile I'm going to click on more info, and I'm going to go ahead and call these people as soon as we arrive to let them know that we're here and to start making their way down to the entryway to pick up their bags. So I usually would call them just using my phone app and put them on speakerphone so that I can just speak to them out loud, and I would say something like, "Hi, we've arrived at your house or at your apartment building. Can you please come down and pick up your bags? They'll be waiting for you right by the front door." If there's an open exterior door to the building, you can leave the bags just inside that door. If the outer door is locked, then you can just leave the bags outside to the side of that door. And again, the runner's just going to leave the bags there and then hop on back to the vehicle, and we can smile and wave in safety from the vehicle. Now, a couple things. In the apartment building situation, you generally have a little bit more time while you're waiting to make sure that the person comes down to get their bags. So the things that the driver can do while the runner is taking the bags is the driver can sort of go back and organize some of the empty crates and containers, and can also close up the truck for the runner, which is often pretty appreciated and helpful. So a couple things not to do. Don't ever enter anybody's home. If it's truly an so the only time you should actually go into an apartment building more than just past the exterior door or touch a buzzer is if you're really unable to reach someone on the phone, then you can try buzzing them using this information that might be here about their apartment number. If they're truly immobile or cannot come down to get their bags, then you can look for a concierge to help you or to bring the bags out for you. You really shouldn't be going up into apartment buildings unless it's a truly exceptional case. And in that case, you should be really careful not to touch the food bags with hands that aren't sanitary, and also to protect your own hygiene by sanitizing your hands after you've touched any other surfaces. So again, once this apartment building delivery is done, if you maybe reached them on the phone and the runner has put down the bags, you can go ahead and confirm completion again and move on to your third delivery. Again, load up the directions and get ready to go while you're waiting for the person to come grab their bags.
And back on the web app here, we can see that the first 2 deliveries have been marked green for completed. So that's just a live view there. Great. Thanks, Becca.
You're welcome.